She was just another traveler at a bustling airport, awaiting her flight. Elegantly dressed and composed, she stood out. Yet, to two airport security officers and a privileged white passenger, her presence, a successful black woman, was unsettling. Stopped without cause, she faced invasive questions about her first-class ticket and finances, queries no white traveler would endure. When she demanded respect and her rights, chaos erupted. She endured harsh insults, her dignity under attack, in a scene that would soon unravel dramatically. Racial slurs cut through the stunned crowd, aimed at her skin color. The officers yelled, threatened, and then escalated to the unthinkable. She was handcuffed in front of hundreds. Treated like a criminal, she was publicly shamed, all due to baseless prejudice. But the officers, in their arrogance and abuse of power, made a grave error. They didn't know who this woman truly was, and their mistake would soon haunt them, turning their lives upside down in ways they never imagined. She wasn't just any passenger. She held a formidable role in America's legal system. What would unfold when her identity was revealed at the airport security office? How would the officers react when they realized who they'd targeted? Would their desperate apologies salvage anything? And what consequences would they and their instigator face? Let's dive into this gripping tale. A busy Friday afternoon at the international airport buzzed with controlled chaos, a whirlwind of travelers, announcements, and anticipation. The terminal echoed with flight calls in crisp English, blending with global languages. Suitcase wheels clattered on shiny floors, mixed with laughter, ringing phones, and weary children's cries. The air carried scents of coffee, perfumes, fast food, and recycled air conditioning. Digital boards flashed green and red, updating flight details in a constant dance of arrivals and departures. At Gate C-19, where Pacific Skies Flight 456 to Seattle was boarding, a diverse crowd gathered, some restless, others distracted, all eager to move. Among them stood Eleanor Brooks, near the front of the priority line. At 42, she radiated quiet confidence, though fatigue lingered after a grueling 4-day legal summit. Dressed in tailored navy slacks and a cream blazer, her practical yet stylish flats matched her understated elegance. A simple silver watch adorned her wrist, her sleek black leather briefcase resting by her small suitcase. Heading home for a restful weekend, she scrolled through case files on her tablet, unaware of the storm brewing nearby. Eleanor traveled solo, valuing her privacy, with no assistant or bodyguard. While waiting to board, she reviewed critical documents, her focus unbroken. Nearby, in the same priority line, stood Mrs. Margaret Hensley, a white woman in her early 70s, visibly irritated. Decked in high-end designer wear, her gold jewelry gleamed, her face taut with displeasure. She tapped her foot, glaring at her watch, her eyes scanning the crowd with contempt, lingering on Eleanor with a scowl that betrayed her deep-seated bias. Mrs. Hensley's impatience boiled over. In her prejudiced mind, a black woman like Eleanor didn't belong in the priority line, let alone first class. Muttering loudly about standard slipping, she caught the ears of nearby passengers. Not content to stew in silence, she marched to the gate agent's desk, her voice dripping with entitlement. "Excuse me, why am I stuck with these people?" she snapped, nodding toward Eleanor. "She looks shady, eyeing my bags. You need to check her credentials." The gate agent, a young woman, faltered under Hensley's haughty demands. Flustered, she tried explaining that Eleanor had valid priority status, but Hensley wouldn't hear it, her complaints growing louder. Her outburst drew the attention of two airport security officers patrolling nearby. Officer Tom Carver, a grizzled veteran in his 50s, and Officer Jake Mullen, a brash 30-year-old. Carver's sharp, biased gaze zeroed in on Eleanor, while Mullen, eager to assert authority, followed suit, sensing an opportunity to flex their power. Hensley lit up at the sight of the officers, her tone shifting to a manipulative whine. "Officers, thank goodness, that woman," she pointed at Eleanor. "She's acting strange, staring at my belongings. I don't feel safe boarding with her. She shouldn't be in first class, probably used fake documents." Her words, laced with venom, played on racial stereotypes to incite fear. The officers, quick to buy into her narrative, turned their suspicious eyes on Eleanor, ready to act without question. Officer Carver, his judgment clouded by prejudice, instantly trusted the wealthy white woman's claims. His weathered face hardened as he sized up Eleanor. Mullen, younger and more volatile, jumped in, his stare hostile. They saw an easy target to dominate, a chance to resolve the issue by intimidating the accused. With stiff, purposeful strides, they approached Eleanor, their presence parting the crowd. Passengers watched, some curious, others uneasy, as the officers prepared to confront her, oblivious to the truth. "Ma'am," Carver began, his tone cold and authoritative, "step out of line. We need to speak with you privately." Eleanor, caught off guard but composed, met their gazes. She glanced at Hensley, who stood smirking nearby, and understood the game. Calmly, she stepped aside. "What's this about, officers?" she asked, her voice steady. Carver didn't waver. "A passenger reported suspicious behavior. You're a potential security risk. Show us your ID and boarding pass, now." The accusation hung heavy, dripping with bias. Eleanor, unfazed, opened her briefcase, producing her driver's license and first-class boarding pass. "These are valid," she said firmly. "What suspicious behavior am I accused of? Who complained? I was just waiting to board." Mullen, itching for control, snapped, "Don't ask questions, just comply. Your attitude's already a problem." Carver skimmed her documents, muttering, "Eleanor Brooks, first class, huh?" His sneer carried a clear racial jab. "What's your job? How'd you afford this ticket? Let's make sure it's yours." The blatant disrespect sparked Eleanor's resolve. Her pulse quickened, but her voice stayed even. "You're questioning me based on prejudice, not evidence. My ticket class or profession isn't your concern under the law. I'm a U.S. citizen, entitled to respect, not discrimination. Your approach violates my rights and police protocol." She extended her hand. "Return my documents and give me your names and badge numbers." Her unyielding stance rattled the officers who weren't used to defiance, especially from someone they underestimated. Mullen's face flushed with rage. "You're mouthing off?" he bellowed, stepping closer. "Who do you think you are? We're the law here." Carver, losing his cool, snarled, "You uppity woman acting like some hotshot lawyer. We'll do what's needed for safety. Want to miss your flight or go to jail?" Their voices rose, spewing racial slurs that shocked the crowd. Passengers froze, some horrified, but none intervened. Hensley watched, her smug grin widening, reveling in the chaos she'd ignited. Eleanor's heart pounded, but she held her ground, her dignity intact despite the verbal assault. She took a deep breath. "Your actions are unlawful. You'll answer for this." Carver scoffed, his eyes gleaming with malice. "We'll see who answers. You're under arrest for disturbing the peace, defying officers, and endangering flight security." The fabricated charges were a desperate power play. Mullen, emboldened, lunged forward, grabbing Eleanor's arm roughly, ready to escalate the situation to a humiliating spectacle. Eleanor winced but didn't resist, knowing physical struggle would fuel their narrative. "You have no right to touch me," she said, her voice cutting through the tense air. Mullen ignored her, yanking her arms behind her back. The sharp click of handcuffs echoed as he clamped them on, the metal biting her wrists. The crowd at Gate C-19 watched in stunned silence, some recording on phones, as Eleanor was publicly shamed, her only crime being her presence and defiance. Carver stood smugly, arms crossed, muttering more insults. Hensley, nearby, beamed with vicious satisfaction, her prejudice validated. The gate agent tried to intervene, but Mullen waved her off. "Move her out," he barked, shoving Eleanor forward. They marched her away from the gate, not toward boarding, but to the airport security office. Handcuffed, Eleanor walked with her head high, her sharp mind cataloging every detail, every face, preparing for the reckoning she knew was coming. The walk through the crowded terminal felt like a parade of humiliation. Whispers and stares followed Eleanor, some pitying, others judgmental. The clatter of the airport faded as her focus sharpened. She memorized the officers' badges, their words, Hensley's triumphant smirk. They reached a small security office tucked in a corner of the terminal. Inside, Carver and Mullen reported Eleanor as a disruptive passenger, handing her ID to a board duty officer who began typing her details mechanically. The duty officer, used to minor airport disputes, asked routinely, "Occupation?" Eleanor, still cuffed, straightened. Her gaze locked on the officer, then flicked to Carver and Mullen, who smirked, expecting a mundane answer. Her voice, calm but commanding, filled the room. "I am Chief Justice Eleanor Brooks of the U.S. Court of Appeals." The words landed like a thunderbolt. The duty officer froze, his pen slipping. Carver and Mullen's smug expressions vanished, replaced by sheer terror as reality crashed down. The room went silent. The duty officer stared, mouth agape, sweat beading on his brow. He glanced at Eleanor's ID, then back at her, realizing the catastrophe. Carver stumbled back, his face ashen. Mullen's knees buckled, his breathing erratic. They'd just handcuffed a federal judge, one of the nation's most powerful legal figures. Their careers, their freedom, hung in the balance. Eleanor stood tall, her piercing gaze unyielding, as the officer's arrogance crumbled into panic, their world unraveling before her. Mullen, trembling, tried to speak. "Chief Justice, we didn't know." His voice cracked, pleading. Carver, equally shaken, muttered, "Ma'am, this was a mistake." Their apologies were hollow, drowned by the weight of their actions. Eleanor remained stoic, her silence deafening. The duty officer, scrambling, fumbled for the handcuff keys, his hands shaking. The room buzzed with tension as the reality sank in. A federal judge, humiliated and cuffed, was about to turn the tables on her tormentors. Mullen's rough grip tightened as he twisted Eleanor's arms, the cuffs slicing into her skin. "You're making this worse," he growled, ignoring her protests. "Release me. You're breaking the law," Eleanor said, her voice sharp, resonating through the stunned crowd. He snapped the cuffs tighter, the metal's cold bite drawing gasps from onlookers. The Gate C-19 scene was a spectacle of injustice. Eleanor publicly degraded for her race and defiance. Carver stood smug, egging Mullen on, oblivious to the storm their actions would unleash. Carver, arms crossed, sneered as Eleanor winced in pain. Hensley, gloating nearby, savored her victory, her prejudice fueling the chaos. "Get her out!" Mullen barked, shoving Eleanor toward the security office. The crowd parted, some filming, others whispering in shock. Eleanor, handcuffed, walked with resolute dignity, her mind racing, cataloging every detail for the reckoning ahead. The officers' arrogance blinded them to the gravity of their mistake, but the truth of Eleanor's identity was about to shatter their world. The march through the terminal was a gauntlet of stares, pity, curiosity, and judgment. Eleanor's back stayed straight, her gaze fixed forward, unyielding. The airport's clamor faded as she memorized Carver's badge, Mullen's slurs, Hensley's smirk. They reached a cramped security office where the officers painted Eleanor as a dangerous disruptor. The duty officer, indifferent, logged her ID, unaware of the bombshell coming. Carver and Mullen lounged, confident, as Eleanor prepared to reveal the truth that would unravel their lives. The duty officer, tapping away, asked, "Occupation?" Eleanor, still cuffed, lifted her chin. Her voice, steady and commanding, cut through the room. "I am Chief Justice Eleanor Brooks, U.S. Court of Appeals." The officer's jaw dropped, his pen clattering. Carver's smirk vanished. Mullen's face paled. Terror seized them. They'd shackled a legal titan. The duty officer stammered, fumbling for keys, sweat dripping. Eleanor's piercing stare held them accountable, her authority undeniable, as the officers realized the catastrophic error they'd made. The room froze. Carver slumped against the wall, his bravado gone. Mullen's hands shook, his breathing ragged. They'd humiliated a federal judge, a figure with power to crush their careers. "Chief Justice, we didn't know," Carver croaked, voice trembling. Mullen, nearly sobbing, begged, "Please, it was a mistake." Their pleas fell flat, hollow against Eleanor's steely resolve. She stood tall, her dignity unshaken, as the duty officer scrambled to undo the cuffs, his panic mirroring the officer's dawning dread. The duty officer, sweating profusely, unlocked Eleanor's cuffs, revealing red welts on her wrists. Carver and Mullen's faces were ashen, their arrogance replaced by raw fear. They knew a federal judge's wrath could end them: jobs, pensions, freedom. Eleanor, rubbing her wrists, spoke with icy authority. "Call your police chief now. Contact the U.S. Marshals and the Court of Appeals chief clerk. Report this immediately." The duty officer, trembling, grabbed the phone, his voice cracking as he relayed the catastrophic situation. News of Chief Justice Brooks' unlawful detention sent shockwaves through the airport's chain of command. Within minutes, the airport police chief, flanked by deputies, stormed into the office, faces grim. U.S. Marshals, tasked with protecting federal judges, arrived alongside Court of Appeals staff. The tiny room became a pressure cooker of accountability. The police chief, bowing deeply, apologized profusely to Eleanor, vowing a thorough investigation. Her calm, unyielding presence commanded respect, as the officers who'd wronged her shrank under the weight of their actions. The airport police chief, voice strained, promised Eleanor swift justice. Carver and Mullen, now silent, stood like condemned men, their earlier bravado obliterated. The marshal's stern glares intensified their panic. Eleanor, composed, recounted the ordeal: Hensley's racist provocation, the officer's slurs, the unjust arrest. Her precise, unflinching testimony left no room for excuses. The chief, red-faced, ordered Carver and Mullen's badges and weapons confiscated, suspending them indefinitely. An FBI probe was launched, targeting their abuse of power and Hensley's role in the fiasco. Carver, voice-breaking, stammered, "Judge Brooks, we're so sorry. A misunderstanding." Mullen, on his knees, sobbed, "Please don't ruin us. We have families." Their groveling, once unthinkable, reeked of desperation. Eleanor's gaze was stone cold, unmoved by their crocodile tears. She'd seen too many courtroom ploys to buy their remorse. "Your apologies don't erase your actions," she said, her voice cutting like a blade. The duty officer, still shaken, relayed orders to secure all evidence: cameras, body cams, witness statements, for the impending investigation. The airport police chief, sweating under pressure, ordered a lockdown of Gate C-19's security footage. Body cam data from Carver and Mullen, plus statements from airline staff, were sealed. Hensley, identified as the instigator, was tracked down. She hadn't yet boarded. Detained for questioning, her smug demeanor cracked as she faced charges of slander and inciting discrimination. Eleanor, now uncuffed, stood as a pillar of authority, her presence commanding the room while the officers and Hensley faced the consequences of their prejudice. The investigation escalated as FBI agents from the Civil Rights Division arrived. They reviewed footage showing Carver and Mullen's slurs and Eleanor's brutal cuffing. Witness accounts corroborated her story, painting a damning picture of racial profiling. Hensley's false claims were dissected, her role as the spark undeniable. The airport police chief, humiliated, vowed to overhaul training to prevent such abuses. Eleanor, though scarred by the ordeal, remained resolute, her resolve to seek justice unwavering as the system began to hold the guilty accountable. The airport became a hub of crisis management. Senior officials huddled, scrambling to contain the fallout. The U.S. Marshals, fiercely protective of judges, demanded answers. Eleanor, flanked by Court of Appeals staff, gave a detailed statement, her voice steady, recounting every insult, every violation. The evidence, crystal-clear video, audio, and testimony, piled up against Carver, Mullen, and Hensley. The police chief, under fire, initiated internal reviews, but Eleanor's focus was clear. Systemic change and accountability, not just punishment, would be her legacy from this injustice. The FBI's probe moved swiftly, zeroing in on Carver and Mullen's actions. Security footage showed them yelling slurs, cuffing Eleanor without cause. Body cam audio captured their racist taunts, leaving no defense. Hensley's baseless complaint was exposed as malicious, her privilege weaponized to harm. The airport's reputation took a hit, with media sniffing the story. Eleanor, though pained, saw an opportunity to expose systemic flaws. Her testimony, sharp and unflinching, fueled the case, ensuring the officers faced the full weight of their crimes. Carver and Mullen were formally charged with civil rights violations and unlawful detention. The airport police chief, under scrutiny, fired them outright, stripping their authority. Their careers were over, but legal battles loomed. Hensley, now a pariah, faced slander and false statement charges. Eleanor, backed by federal officials, pushed for broader reforms, her ordeal a catalyst for change. The terminal, once a scene of humiliation, now buzzed with whispers of her power, as the guilty braced for the consequences of their actions. In a makeshift conference room, Eleanor detailed the incident to investigators. Her account, Hensley's provocation, the officer's aggression, the public shaming, was airtight. The FBI, working with Airport Internal Affairs, built a case rooted in undeniable evidence. Carver and Mullen, now stripped of badges, faced federal prosecution. Hensley, detained at the airport, crumbled under questioning, her arrogance replaced by fear. Eleanor's calm authority steered the proceedings, her voice a beacon of justice, demanding accountability for the racism that had targeted her. The investigation's findings were brutal. Gate C-19 footage showed Mullen's rough handling, Carver's slurs, and Hensley's venomous lies. Body cams confirmed their guilt, every word damning. Witnesses, including a gate agent, backed Eleanor's account, describing her dignity under fire. The airport police chief, desperate to save face, pledged cooperation with the FBI. Eleanor, though shaken, saw her ordeal as a chance to expose bias in law enforcement. Her resolve hardened, knowing her fight would ripple far beyond this airport's walls. Hensley, now facing legal scrutiny, tried to backtrack, claiming she misspoke. But video evidence and witness statements trapped her. Her role in sparking the incident led to charges of providing false information and inciting racial bias. Carver and Mullen, their lives unraveling, turned on her, hoping to lessen their punishment. The FBI's case grew stronger, with Eleanor's testimony at its core. Her public humiliation was now a rallying cry for justice, her identity as a judge amplifying the case's impact. The fallout was swift. Carver and Mullen were indicted on federal charges: civil rights violations, unlawful detention, and conspiracy. Their defense, claiming they followed protocol, collapsed against the evidence. Hensley, her wealth useless, faced a separate probe for slander and false statements. The airport, under public scrutiny, launched bias training, but Eleanor demanded more: systemic reform. Her ordeal, once a personal nightmare, became a national flashpoint, exposing the dangers of prejudice in law enforcement and the power of one woman's resilience. The trial of Carver and Mullen gripped the nation. Prosecutors presented damning evidence: gate footage, body cam audio, Eleanor's searing testimony. The defense floundered, unable to counter the truth. Jurors, visibly moved, deliberated briefly before convicting both on all counts. Eleanor's presence in the courtroom, dignified and unbowed, underscored the case's weight. The judge, condemning their abuse of power, signaled a broader reckoning. Hensley, awaiting her own legal fate, watched from the sidelines, her role in the chaos now undeniable. Sentencing day was tense. The federal judge, voice stern, decried Carver and Mullen's betrayal of public trust. Their actions, targeting a federal judge, demanded harsh punishment. Each received 5 years in prison, a severe but fitting sentence under federal guidelines. The courtroom buzzed, the verdict a warning to law enforcement nationwide. Eleanor, watching silently, felt no joy, only resolve. Her fight wasn't over. It was a call for systemic change, ensuring no one else endured the humiliation she'd faced. The trial's impact reverberated. Carver and Mullen, now inmates, lost everything: careers, reputations, freedom. The airport police shamed, revamped policies, but public trust waned. Eleanor's testimony, replayed in media, sparked debates on racial bias in policing. Her ordeal, once a moment of shame, became a symbol of resistance. Hensley's fate loomed, her privilege no shield against justice. Eleanor, back at her bench, channeled the pain into advocacy, her voice stronger, her mission clear: dismantle the systems that enabled such injustice. The case closed a chapter, but the scars remained. Carver and Mullen's conviction sent a message: abuse of power would face consequences. Eleanor's dignity under fire inspired many, her story a beacon for reform. The airport, now a case study in bias, struggled to rebuild trust. Hensley's reckoning was next, her actions a catalyst for the chaos. Eleanor, undeterred, resumed her judicial work, her resolve unshaken, knowing her fight for equality was just beginning, fueled by the injustice she'd overcome. Margaret Hensley's reckoning was severe. Facing charges for false statements and inciting racial bias, her wealth couldn't save her. Her lawyer, desperate, secured a plea deal: a guilty plea to a lesser charge, plus a $600,000 fine. The penalty stung, a harsh lesson for her hateful actions. Eleanor, though vindicated, sought more than punishment: systemic change. Her ordeal exposed the poison of prejudice, sparking calls for reform. Hensley's fall was a warning. No one escapes accountability when justice, led by Eleanor's resolve, prevails. The saga closed with justice served, but its lessons lingered. Carver and Mullen's imprisonment underscored the cost of abusing power. Hensley's fine was a public shaming, her privilege dismantled. The airport, now a symbol of reform, faced scrutiny to rebuild trust. Eleanor's story, a testament to resilience, inspired a movement against bias. Her humiliation, once a wound, became a catalyst for change. Back on the bench, she fought for equality, her voice unwavering, ensuring her legacy would outlast the pain she endured. Eleanor Brooks emerged stronger, her dignity unshaken. The incident, though traumatic, fueled her mission for a fairer justice system. Carver, Mullen, and Hensley paid dearly, their lives upended by their own prejudice. The nation watched, learning the dangers of unchecked bias. Eleanor's resolve grew, her courtroom a battleground for equality. Thank you for following this powerful story. If it moved you, like and subscribe for more impactful tales. Tomorrow, another gripping story awaits, shining light on truth and justice. In the heart of a bustling airport, Chief Justice Eleanor Brooks, a beacon of dignity at 42, faced a storm of racial prejudice that shook Gate C-19. Handcuffed and humiliated by officers Tom Carver and Jake Mullen, spurred by Margaret Hensley's venomous lies, Eleanor's ordeal unveiled a raw truth. Justice, though battered, can rise. Her steely resolve turned shame into a clarion call for reform, toppling the arrogant and exposing systemic flaws. Two profound lessons emerge from this saga, etched in the chaos of that Seattle-bound flight. First, unchecked bias is a ticking bomb. Hensley's disdain, weaponizing her privilege, ignited a chain of injustice. $600,000 in fines couldn't erase her role. Carver and Mullen, blinded by prejudice, saw a black woman in first class as a threat, not a federal judge. Their 5-year prison sentences, handed down in a packed courtroom, scream that stereotypes, when acted upon, destroy lives. Eleanor's pain, broadcast in grainy gate footage, warns America. Prejudice in power betrays trust, demanding vigilance to dismantle it. Second, resilience can reshape history. Eleanor, wrists scarred by cuffs, didn't crumble. Her voice, commanding even in chains, rallied marshals, FBI, and a nation. From the ashes of humiliation, she forged a legacy, new airport policies, national debates on policing, and a reaffirmed fight for equality. Her story, echoing from Seattle's terminal to federal courts, proves one woman's defiance can spark systemic change, urging every citizen to stand tall against injustice. Have Eleanor Brooks's fight against injustice at Gate C-19 inspired you to confront bias and champion change? Share your thoughts, hit that like button, and comment below. How can we build a fairer world? Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more gripping stories that spark action and deliver powerful lessons. Join our community to stay empowered with values that transform lives. Let's make justice resonate together.